Sometimes, to convey emotion visually, you need to set up your frame in a way that represents the character's emotion. As an example, if you wanted to convey loneliness, then you might want to isolate your frame within a frame with darkness outside the inside frame, isolating your character. The darkness creates a lack of detail, simplifying the frame, which corresponds with the emptiness related to the emotion of loneliness. It also creates a greater contrast of light outlining the inner frame, which could be something like a narrow doorway, creating a strong feeling of observing, inviting the audience in to feel like they are looking in on intimate moments of people's lives. This is just one way of approaching one emotion, and there are so many ways and many emotions to make visual and distinct without confusion or conflation between audience members of what was trying to be conveyed. For example, you wouldn't want to confuse the feeling of sadness with loneliness because you can feel sad and not be lonely. They are separate but often overlap. In the case of lighting technique, you would want to use a dull color grade with more cold blues than warm oranges to convey this. But if you overwhelm the audience with blues and forget to include the warmer tones occasionally, the audience will subconsciously be thinking the character is sad, which may not be your intention for that particular moment or scene. The nuance you're dealing with when trying to make your audience feel emotion is carried over to making your audience think your film is part of one genre or another, which is very important because it sets up expectations for the type of emotional journey they will expect to be taken on. As a filmmaker, if you can successfully manipulate your audience's emotions, then you can easily anchor the piece for genres that rely on feeling more than costumes and location. Take the romance genre and the western genre. A romance genre can be set wherever you like as long as the romance is present between the characters. Your audience shouldn't be let down, whereas the western genre greatly relies on costume and location to create an experience your audience will be familiar with. The same applies for a drama versus a science fiction. One relies on surging emotion and the other on future tech and often space travel. Now that the introduction is out of the way and you have a bit of food for thought, let's look at one feature film by the well-renowned Japanese animation company Studio Ghibli, When Marnie Was There. Spoiler alert, the biggest twist here will be completely spoiled. First, let's get some context to what's going on here. Studio Ghibli's When Marnie Was There makes you think it's showing you a mysterious romance between two young girls in the countryside, but is telling you the story of the main character's deceased grandmother's romance, which leads to the tragic backstory of how her grandmother lost her partner and daughter, left with Anna, her grandchild, to take care of in her old age. The writers cleverly raised the verisimilitude by placing Marnie in the spot of her grandmother's lover during the visions she experiences in her sleep about her grandmother's past. The film makes you believe that the events are happening in real time, but this is not the case. There is no romance between Marnie and Anna. They never had the interactions that we see them having. Anna is recalling distant memories of the stories her grandmother would tell her as a baby when she had no one left to talk to. The film tackles the loneliness an orphan might feel when they believe their parents had abandoned them through Marnie's character arc, starting with her being shy and seemingly emotionless, shut off to the world around her, to the end of the film, where she seems much happier, showing more open and more animated body language from the sense of acceptance and love she now feels in place of the loneliness she had felt before. Now that's out of the way, let's look at how it achieves this so well. This animation uses conventions of the romance genre such as slow piano, often alone but sometimes accompanied by soft lyrics to create the lonely and sad atmosphere often placed at the beginning of a character's arc within the romance genre so that there can be progression and a relatively happier ending. Music in a romance is often used to reflect the character's mood rather than being used for building tension like in action movies. when Marnie was there, uses dreamscapes obscurely, so that the audience might not pick up on the fact that the events aren't entirely real. They are also frequent enough and real enough to trick you into believing they are genuinely happening. The events are filled with typical codes of the romance genre, such as using top-down shots to make one character appear small and vulnerable in moments of distress, and the other character up higher, shot from below to make them appear further away and out of reach. One scene has Anna stood down in the marsh at low tide whilst Marnie is up on the top floor in the nearby mansion, and even though they are physically close, as an audience member you feel as if there is much more space between them. If a romance movie has anything, it almost certainly has some kind of barrier to overcome, which often comes in the form of one character having to chase the other. This scene perfectly creates this sense of chase, this sense of unbridled passion and determination to be with one another. This is backed up strongly with dialogue, where Marnie proclaims her love, informing the audience that they want to be together, but in a natural and debatably romantic, but undeniably genuine way. The big surprise occurs near the end when Anna talks with a woman painting the marsh house, that same marsh house that Anna was drawn to throughout the film. She tells Anna the tragic story of Marnie's childhood and adult life, which subverts everyone's expectations by revealing how Anna was actually Marnie's grandchild and Marnie had passed away when Anna was still very young. This is such a big deal to the audience because they'd really been being told that same story all along, but in a way that twisted the angle of it by showing only what people on the outside could see, which really carries a deeper, much more sorrowful message or moral. Not to ever assume you know everything about a person because you can't always know what's going on behind closed doors. The twist also turns what was, from one perspective, a sweet young romance into a sad drama, as we learn about how Marnie's parents neglected her as a child and the maids looking after her were bullies towards her. The mood is brought way down as the audience realize the bond between the two characters, as we knew it, was fake, broken. The thing that manages to get me every time is how the ending is so perfectly bittersweet. As Anna recovers from her sickness, and some somber but positive lyrical piano music plays to send the credits scrolling. Why is this a good thing? Why is a fairy tale happily ever after not always the best path for a romance? This seems to be in part because you can reflect upon your own situation and feel grateful that you aren't floating on a plank as your boyfriend drowns like in the Titanic, but also because you might relate, and sometimes feeling sad is just a bit better than feeling nothing at all. So, I hope this explanation of a successful feature film will have helped you to better explore creating atmosphere and emotions through both sound and visuals, so your films aren't just relying on dialogue to spoon-feed the audience information, as if used too frequently, your audience will feel not only bored, but greatly disappointed upon the emotional roller coaster they expected to be taken on under the romance genre. Thank you so very much for listening.
On the outside, and so I just sit in my room after hours with the moon and think of who knows my name. Would you cry if I died? Would you remember